Hey, First United Methodist family, it's Pastor Shannon here with our weekly update for September 6th. I'm getting this out a day later than I usually do because I took some time off this weekend to celebrate Labor Day, to take some time to rest and relax. And we've been talking about Sabbath rest the last few weeks, so I hope that you were able to find some time and space in your lives to practice Sabbath rest. This past Sunday, as we wrapped up our sermon series on Sabbath, we talked about the year of the Lord's Sabbath, the year of release from debts, the forgiveness of debts. Of course, this was something that was practiced in ancient Israel, as every 7 years there would come a year where all debts were to be canceled and all loans were to be forgiven. We also talked about the parable of the prodigal son, and together these two stories show us what God's grace looks like. It is for everyone. It is a free gift. And it shows that God is often unfair, that God gives to us when we don't feel like we have earned it or deserved it. Another great story from Scripture that talks about God's fairness, or rather God's unfairness, is the parable of the vineyard workers in Matthew chapter 20. I wanted to share that with you today, just as we continue to think about Sabbath and rest and God's grace. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, but just to summarize, in Matthew 20, Jesus tells a story about a vineyard worker who goes out to the streets to find some day laborers to work in his field, to harvest some grapes. So he goes out at 6 a.m. and he finds some workers and says, well, I'll pay you for a full day's labor if you come and work in my field. He goes out again at 9 a.m. and finds more workers. I guess they needed more help, harvesting the grapes. And he does this again 2 more times, at noon and at 5 p.m. And at 5 p.m. is just 1 hour before the workday is to end. So then at 6 p.m., he gathers all the workers together. He lines them up so that they can receive their payment. And of course, those who had been working hard since 6 a.m., they expected to receive a bigger payment than those who had just been brought onto work an hour earlier. But to their surprise, their shock, their dismay, the vineyard owner goes on and pays everyone the same amount, a full day's wage, whether they worked 12 hours or whether they just worked 1 hour. The vineyard owner, of course, represents God. And, as these workers are starting to get angry and say, that's not fair, the vineyard owner tells them, don't get angry. I paid you a fair amount for your labor, and I can choose to give to these workers the same amount that I gave to you. Don't be envious of them because I am generous. And of course, this is a picture of God's grace to us. It is unfair. We all get grace abundantly, whether we think we've earned it, whether we think we deserve it or not. And of course, we as God's people are called to share that same generosity and grace with everyone we encounter. This is a perfect segue to what we're going to be talking about next week as we begin our 3-week series on stewardship and serving, as we think about what it looks like to extend generosity and grace towards others. So if you consider yourself a regular attender at our church, a member of our community, I hope that you will join us, especially this Sunday, September 10th, as we celebrate our church's ministry over the past year. And I look forward to seeing you then.